Can hear
Some
Mark.
damn thing like a hangnail or a stubbed toe.
Oh, I can hear it.
Maybe a cold or a stolen car, or even getting held up at gunpoint and losing all my credit cards. Could have been the house afire, or the dog got sick on the rug, then rolled in it after he shat himself.
Ah,
But it wasn't supposed to be this. The thick soup of worry, the horizon blurry and moving away from me, where hysteria makes sense and the mad king reigns over chaos. It was supposed to have been my grandmother's soup tureen slipping from my wet hands after a disastrous dinner party where best friends became sworn enemies. A tear on the lapel of my one and only bespoke suit. A tear right next to the hole the cigar had made. All things equal, it was supposed to be a shadow on the x-ray, an anxious wait for results, a dark relief brought on by benign results. Not this. Not one long night where the dark hides every menace we know, not the wary looks from those who never noticed us before, not the suspicious eye I cast on some stranger I might have otherwise ignored. It shouldn't be the tickle of worry about everything and everyone, nor should it be so damn quiet. Motors silenced, no buzz saws, grumpy workmen, no neighbors shaking hands, leaning in, happy to see each other. The post-mortem and every encounter a pre-mortem inventory of who's next. The maps, the counts, the graphs, the lies, the fire hose I'm drinking from with four-way streams. It shouldn't be like this. Seeing our loved ones, our liked ones, our livelihoods on screens, staring in an ether 1 foot away and 10 states away. One should not ache like this to touch the doorman's shoulder and say, "Thanks, guy," or to be ignored by a surly, sneering waitress. No, what it should have been is losing my favorite money clip, thick with bills and never finding it. I really wish it had been 2 flat tires and a 5% battery left and my AAA card stolen by the guy in the first paragraph. That's what it really should have been. It should have been just like that. Just like hot coffee on my keyboard and my front door splintering in half for no goddamn reason. The soup is lukewarm, unpalatable, the broth thin and watery. It tastes like worry and helplessness and impotence and rage, bitter, bland, and banal. Not like the thick, rich stew we served in my grandmother's antique tureen with a chunk and morsels so memorable that we'll never forget how good it tasted to lose the tureen and our friends all in one night. Eulogy for Jim Harrison. Gravity won. The old man dropped, pen in hand. I'm surprised they even found his body. I thought he would transmogrify into a bear, lumbering in death as he did in life, filled with sweet meats, wild blueberries, and his beloved quail. A robust and rare French wine sloshing in his belly. Or maybe he'd become brown dog, slyly tumescent, guileless, libidinous, and lazy as hell. I suspect that rigor mortis first stiffened his nether regions and left his taste buds juicy and so supple that he was greeted at the gates with wine, women, and an epic poem. I imagine the last moment like this. Writing at his desk, he looked at the remains of his baguette and brie, shipped just yesterday's from Zingerman's, same-day delivery, a premium paid for premium snacks. Belly sated, but tongue hungering for more, he pushed the pudge of his thumb down into the last crumbs, licked and took his last sip of red wine or of cold black coffee, or as I would prefer to think, wine and coffee in sweet succession. Drifting down his gullet, they detoured to his once capacious heart and turned his rich and rustic blood into a cheesy goo, replacing needless oxygen into the fine exudate of Coderone, brie, and bread. I wrote this one for a fictional wife who had to hear her fictional husband tell the same fucking story over and over and over again for their entire married life. He told the story for the 1,000th time. The one that charmed and beguiled me the first time he took me to dinner with my friends. The way they looked at him, warmed by his smooth delivery, amused by the imperceptible delay of the final line that tied all the loose ends of the rambling tale, the line that pulled it all together and sent us all into a sweet reverie. It was the same story he told my family the third time we met, waiting through those first 2 visits, I suppose, to weigh the heft of kind regard, to see if the spark of infatuation would find the kindling of true affection. To see my father lean into him, his eyes fixed on his bright countenance as the tale unfolded, I knew that this is where he belonged. Years later, at my son's bar mitzvah, sweet wine raised to the heavens above, the guests, many familiar with the arc of the tale, all bathed him in laughter and in delight. The many parties, trips with new acquaintances, the new parents at our kids' schools, even one day the park ranger who guided us out of the hopeless maze of trails back in the Tetons. Graduations, our children's new friends and new cities, and of course our daughter's wedding, toasting her and the young man upon whom he gazed with the same guileless love and acceptance that my father those many years ago had cast upon him. The same loose ends tied with simple elegance, and a master's timing that charmed with the same warmth and laughter that runs back more years than I care to remember. It was the 1,000th time, so you do understand, don't you, officer? I wrote this poem for my father-in-law, Al, who's going to be 90 next month, period. He is a large, gregarious, loving, warm man who, when he was in his 30s, had a heart attack, and I think another one a few years later, period, who survived the heart attacks quite well and resumed the life that he had before, comma, even better, because he was had faced his mortality. So this is what I wrote to him, and you'll see the reference to the hospitalization when he was a young man. Okay, Al. He fills the room not as many men do, all ego and elbows, but with a heart capacious and thrumming that aches so hard to welcome all in that it broke twice, repaired and restored by his grit and his grip on the pulse of the world he swore he would never leave. Young, hair white with worry and fear, muscles shrunk by misguided advice to lie still for weeks lest excitement bang its last beat. Told he'd never play again. His hospital room 6 stories over a ball field. A cruel stroke. a cruelty he never accepted, batting third on the 80 and over league. His blood always richened with the many embraces he wound his arms around, and with the sorrows he endured with grace and wisdom, and still, beloved and loving, red as liquid rubies tumbling through 4 hearty chambers. To live for each day like a boy at summer camp, mitt and ball in hand, Florida sun baking all the ARP boys, aching joints and pubescent souls. Something eternal lives in Al, a sliver of heaven's firmament, the spark of hope that animates us into a future unknown and welcome. The heat that drives the engine down the tracks that brings us to the receding horizon that we never stop reaching for.